Tanny Cooks here, and today I'm going to show you how to make a Philly cheesesteak recipe with a twist. So I have the traditional ingredients, including the bell peppers, the onions, mushrooms, and I'm also adding garlic because I have it. But instead of the typical steak, we are going to use cube steak. Now, cube steak is awesome for this recipe because cube steak is grounded hamburger meat that is pounded into a thin cut of meat. So it cooks really quickly, and we're going to serve it over a bed of rice for something extra special. And stay tuned to the end of this video because I'm also going to show you how to make a vegetarian option of this dish as well. So let's get to cooking. As I clean my vegetables, you'll notice that I am using white vinegar with my water as well as a vegetable brush. So I'm just scrubbing each bell pepper clean. Sometimes there could be a waxy coating that the stores put on some of your produce. So you want to just be sure that you scrub that off and let your vegetables soak in your cleaning solution of water, vinegar, and or baking soda, or whatever you choose to buy to clean your veggies. Next up is my mushrooms. These mushrooms were sliced and they were pretty clean. I am still going to rinse them off with water to be sure there isn't any dirt on them. These are mushrooms. They're not hydroponic, so they weren't grown in water. So that means they were grown in soil. And I just want to rinse them off. So I'm not going to let mushrooms soak too long. They do absorb a lot of moisture. So we're going to rinse them off and then squeeze them carefully to get all of the moisture out before we cook them. So I'm just going through and agitating my vegetables with the water to get off any sand that may be on them. Next up, we're going to drain them and rinse them off. I'm using a disposable paper towel to grab a handful of mushrooms and squeeze all of the water out of them and then place them into my next bowl. You could use a clean tea towel or kitchen towel to do the same thing. Just squeeze all of the liquid out so that they're dry because we're going to saute them, so we don't want moisture in them, and set them to the side. Next up, we're going to slice up our onions. I'm using white onions here. I cut off both ends of my onion so that I have a flat base and top to slice with. Now, in this shot, this looks like my first onion, but I already did a couple before I did this one, so that's why my cutting board doesn't look completely clean. But it was just with onions that I used this previously. So I sliced my onion in half, and then I peeled off the outer layers and wipe off my board before I start slicing. I am slicing. Now, you can slice your onions to the thickness you like. This half I cut pretty thinly, but then I thought, some I may want a little thicker because as these onions saute and cook, they will release moisture and shrink. So I'm just going to continue to cut up my onions and place them in my bowl. Next up, I'm going to start cutting some bell peppers, and I want to try cutting my bell peppers in a way that I have minimal seeds on my cutting board to deal with. So look at this. Look how I'm doing this. Let's see if I can cut this whole one without getting many seeds left on it. And look at that, y'all. I'm so excited. The seeds are in the core, and I don't have any, just a few that are left in there for me to clean out. And so what I'm going to do is just use my knife to cut the white membrane. I don't want that part in it. And you certainly could use a smaller paring knife. This is my bigger chef knife. And again, you just want to cut your bell peppers in a similar size to your onions so that they will saute and be of similar size. But you can do it as thin as you want or as thick as you want. This is your meal. I like this size for this particular recipe, so I'm going to show you one more bell pepper. This one is orange. I cut off both ends, and now I'm going to try to cut it in a way to minimize the seeds left on my cutting board for me to clean up. I just like to challenge myself with things like this to see if I can do it. And I already see here, I didn't cut it exactly right. I need to figure out how I can identify the best way to hold the bell pepper before I make the first slice. So I feel like I need like 50 bell peppers to practice with, and I'll probably do that one day. So I'll probably share that video with you as well. Here I had a few more seeds to deal with, but still not as bad as usual. So I'm pretty happy with my experiment. So I'm just going to slice these up into similar sizes. And I'm going to do the same thing with the remainder of my bell peppers. I use bell peppers of all colors, red, orange, yellow, and green, but you can certainly use bell peppers of just one color if you prefer or if that's what you have access to. So I don't know if it's traditional to use garlic in Philly cheesesteaks, but I had a head of garlic, so I decided to break off a few cloves, and I just smashed them down with my big knife to get the skin off easier and to also open up or smash the garlic cloves before I slice them and mince them up small. So that is easier to do with a big knife with a wide blade versus a small one. So next up is to peel the garlic skins off. And then I cut off the ends, like the root end of the garlic, just because I don't want anyone to bite into that. So I do that for each of my garlic cloves. And then next off, I'm just going to cut a few big slices. And then I'm going to start mincing up my garlic just to make very small pieces. And we're going to be very careful when we saute this so that we don't burn it as we cook our other vegetables. Okay, so here we have it. We have our cut up bell peppers of assorted colors, our cut up white onions, and our mushrooms. I did not slice up the red onion. I'm going to use that for another recipe. And here is our garlic. You can certainly use more garlic if you want. I'm adding garlic powder, so I was comfortable with that. So let's get to cooking. I have my speckled aluminum black bottom pan that is heavy. And it is also non-stick. So I added some olive oil to it. You can use any oil, neutral oil of your preference. So you could use canola, grapeseed, vegetable soy oil. Heat it up and then add your mushrooms. I'm seasoning each level of this dish. So the first seasoning I'm using with my mushrooms is onion powder. And next I'm going to use garlic powder. Depending on the amount of vegetables you have, that will determine how much seasoning you need to use. I'm starting off with about a tablespoon of seasoning because these seasonings do not contain sodium. So I also added black pepper and poultry seasoning. Poultry season is vegan. It does not contain any chicken or animal product to it. So give that a nice stir. And as you stir your vegetables over your heated pan, you may realize you need more oil. Now in my second pan, I am going to cook my next set of vegetables separately because each vegetable may take a different amount of time to cook, and that's why I'm doing them separately. So I did my mushrooms in the first pan, and now I'm doing my onions in the second pan. We're going to follow the same procedure. If we need more oil, then we'll add it, and then we're also going to add in the same seasonings. None of these seasonings contain sodium, so you can add as much as you like. If you don't like onion powder, then don't add it. If you don't want garlic, don't add it. I'm just adding the seasonings that I like and that I know taste good to me and my family. So we're sauteing these on medium. We don't want them to brown too fast because we want them to soften all the way through, not just brown on the outside. So I'm back to my mushrooms and they're sauteed to the point that I want. If you like yours sauteed or cooked harder, then you can certainly do that. But I removed all of my mushrooms from the pan. And now I added a little bit more oil because I'm going to put my bell peppers in this pan to cook down. You can see that my oil is popping, so it is heated. And now I'm just adding my assorted bell peppers. These colors are so vibrant, y'all. I love it. It's so exciting to see beautiful colors in my pots and pans as I cook. I just love it. I'm adding the same seasonings, onion powder, garlic powder, black pepper, and poultry seasoning. This poultry seasoning, as I mentioned, is vegan. This is made by McCormick. The ingredients are thyme, sage, marjoram, rosemary, black pepper, paprika. It does not contain any animal product. And I'm mentioning that because I have received a question about that before. How can a dish be vegan if I have poultry seasoning? So I do add a top after a few minutes to help my vegetables steam and soften up before they brown too much and caramelize. I do want it to caramelize because that's my preference. So now that my bell peppers have cooked through and they're soft, I'm adding my little bit of garlic to the same pan. There is oil there, but if you need to add more oil, do that. I'm adding my garlic here into a certain section so that I can be sure that it cooks. Next up is our beef cube steak. It is pounded thin, so we're going to cook it for a short amount of time on each side. But first, we're going to season it up. We're going to season it with the same seasonings we use for our vegetables: poultry seasoning, black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and a bit of light salt on both sides. So I took my bell peppers out of their pan and mixed them with my onions and garlic since all are cooked. So I'm going to turn off the heat and let these just continue to cook on the residual heat. I added more oil to my pan before I add my beef to it. You can see that it is seasoned up on both sides. And I'm adding it to the pan. Don't overcrowd your pan. So in this pan, I can comfortably fit 3. We're literally going to cook each one of these in the pan for 2 minutes on each side. I'm going to add liquid smoke because I like the additional flavor, but you don't have to add it if you don't want to. And look at that, y'all. 2 minutes on medium high. If that's too high for your pan, you want to use a nonstick pan with oil in it, you can turn it down to medium heat. But I'm adding liquid smoke on both sides. And I'm cooking it for 2 minutes on each side. I have my silicone mat on a cutting board. I have my mozzarella cheese slices. You can use vegan cheese slices if you prefer. I'm doing 2 batches because I didn't overcrowd my pan, so I let my cooked meat rest. And my vegetarian option, I made a mound of bell peppers, onions, and mushrooms, and I'm going to treat that as if it was meat by itself, y'all. So that is a great vegetarian option, just to have the vegetables that we cover with cheese or vegan cheese. And look at that. You can hardly see it because of my lighting, but there is pink inside of my meat still, and we want this because we're going to put this in the oven to let the cheese melt on top of it. So let your meat still have some pink inside. I made more onions. You can caramelize them as deep and dark as you want them to your preference. I'm also making some rice. So I use this boil in the bag basmati rice. I'm cooking it with the instructions on the bag. So basically I'm going to let the water 4 quarts boil for my 2 bags for 8 to 10 minutes. And then I'm going to take the bags of cooked rice out. I probably let this go for 11 or 12 minutes. And I'm dropping it into a rice cleaner bowl strainer inside of a bigger stainless steel bowl to drain. I bought this rice just to see how it turns out. I don't know about cooking food in plastic. I'm not so comfortable with that, but it must be safe because they sell it, right? Not right. So I probably won't buy this again, but it was fine for this application. When I took my rice out of the bags, I did add onion powder and butter, and I just fluffed it up with a fork and set that to the side until my final plating. And so here I have my mounds of meat. I added my bell peppers and onions to the top of the meat, and I have my 1 vegetarian option that is just the veggies. Add a slice of cheese. On the slip mat, I didn't add extra oil because remember there was oil in our meat pans. And stick it in your oven to cook for a couple of minutes, just until the cheese melts, and pull it out. And look at that, y'all. Look at how awesome it looks. So now we put our rice on a pan, and it is time to plate up our meat, veggies, and cheese. This looks so awesome. You want to serve this as soon as you cook it because you don't want your meat to overcook on the inside. But look at this. Look at how glorious this dish looks on top of the rice. This was very hearty and very delicious. A new option for making Philly cheesesteak, y'all. It was so great. I'm definitely going to cook this again. So if you think you may want to cook this, leave me a comment down below. And thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel.